every year.
Not. I've heard of 13, 14 list.
13, 14 list. Okay. What else? Anyone else would like to try? OWASP top 10. What is OWASP top 10? You guys would have heard about it. It tells about the most critical security risks, right, to web apps, right? What about others? So the latest list that we have so far is that came in 2017. Okay. And the previous list came in 2013. Okay. So actually what OWASP does is OWASP is your non-profit organization. You can say it is built up by all these independent security researchers. Okay. What they do is they try to analyze the trends in web application attacks. Okay. Like they try to do this R&D, they try to do all of this survey and monitoring stuff. Okay. And in every 3 to 4 years they come up with this list. Okay. So for releasing a list in 2017, it they actually do all their surveys from 2013 to 2017. Okay. All these years in between were used, were utilized for all that homework that they did, and then they came up with this list. As and now you can as you can see that now we are in 2020. Okay. So we are expecting a new OWASP top 10 list either by the end of 2020 or by 2021 first half. Okay. What they do is basically they try to rank out what kind of trends, what kind of attacks were seen against the web application in past 3 to 4 years. Okay. So what they does is they come up with a list of 10 attack vectors. Okay. Here you can see this is the list. Like on the first, you can see injection, broken authentication, sensitive data exposure, XCEs, BAC, security misconfig, XSS, insecure deserialization, using component with known vulnerabilities, and insufficient logging and monitoring. Okay. So the first one means that this was the type of vulnerability, or this was the attack vector which was exploited the most number of the times. Okay. And there were, that means that there were a lot of web applications that were actually vulnerable to this. Okay. And the frequency starts decreasing from top to bottom. Okay. In the 2000 list we had cross-site scripting as the #3, but in the 2017 list, the cross-site scripting went from third state, from the third rank to the 7th rank. That means that cross-site scripting bugs drastically reduced. Okay. Okay. So we are not going to talk about all of these bugs. Okay. We are not here for web application penetration testing. Instead, we have got a different dedicated whole month of training for web application penetration testing. So that is again not possible for me to cover in a single session. Now let's talk about uh, some place like,
So I had a question, as in, isn't cross-site scripting a part of injection attack?
yeah, it is.
So why do we keep cross-site scripting and injection
Um,
differently? as in exclusively or whatever.
Yeah, right. Uh, that's because when we do an injection, most of the time we are going to attack in a database. Okay, the concept differs. In a sense, you can say that in cross-site scripting, we are also doing an injection. Okay, like we are trying to inject it in the source code. That's what you are saying, right? But essentially, that is different from the injection. Okay, we are not trying to fetch some sensitive data out of something. Okay, because these injection based vulnerabilities, all of them are going to give you some kind of a data. Well, so a lot of guys ask me like from where we can start practicing and all that stuff. So what I have here is I have a mind map here. Okay, so what you guys can try doing is you guys can start from the top. You guys can decide what kind of bug you want to practice. Okay, and you guys can start practicing right away. Okay, like that. So out of this thing, what I have done is I have installed BWAP. Okay, what is BWAP? BWAP basically stands for broken, or you can say buggy web application. Okay, if you guys want to install it, here is the link. Just type BWAP here. Go to the SourceForge site. Go to the files and download bbox from here. Bbox 1.7. Okay, and it is going to provide me with a download link here. Just click on save file. I'm not going to click on save file. Let's go back. I'm going to provide you with a direct download link in the chat. Okay. So let's talk about what is cross-site scripting. What is cross-site scripting? Can anyone explain it to me?
So it is a JavaScript code which is injected to a source code of.
Which is injected into the source code.
Yes. So
So is it mandatory that it is going to be a JavaScript code only?
Sir,
Yeah,
sir, the mind map which you just showed us, it was from Google Images, right? Or was it your own?
it was by Aman Hardikar.
Okay, okay. Can you please share the website link on the
Sure,
chat box?
I'll share that. Okay, so this is the mind map. Paste. So there are other domains here as well. Data security, AWS, blah blah blah, forensic challenges, and whole lot of stuff. Okay, but I believe that would be irrelevant as of now. What did I just saw here? Web application test. Oh, great. Okay. So let me see if I can find BWAP over here. Yeah, here it is. Here you can see BWAP. So I'm using BWAP only. Okay, BWAP or BBox VM. So if you guys already have DVWA or BWAP or Mutility or WebGoat, everything is going to work. Okay, they are essentially one and the same thing. The bugs are going to remain same, nothing else. So I'll talk about two vulnerabilities, or let's say I'll talk about three vulnerabilities. Okay, cross-site scripting, file inclusion, and SQL injection. That would suffice. I've shared the mind map. All right, let's get back to my VM here. This is going to be my target. This is my attacker. Let's open my terminal. Get my IP address over here. Get my target IP address over here. 140 is my target IP address. I can do a very basic nmap scan. Okay. I can see that port 80 and port 443 are open. Right away visit to my browser. Go to the, or let me just open it here itself. An extremely buggy web application. Great. Select BWAP. Okay. What are the credentials? What are the login credentials?
So I think admin password. As far as I know.
Admin password. That is not working here. Okay, actually the credentials are right in front of you. B and buck. So for those people who already know what is cross-site scripting, there's nothing new that I'm going to teach today. This is basically for those who do not know what is cross-site scripting. Okay, I'll try to cover the most basic aspects here. So here I'm provided with a list of vulnerabilities that I can test for. Okay, so I'm selecting, let's say, the most basic one, cross-site scripting reflected get, and click on hack. Clicked on hack. Okay. So here you can see that this is my target URL now. Okay, and this is the web page that I am provided with. Okay, consider it as your target web application, a normal website. Okay, you can find this website in any bug bounty program or in your day-to-day life. It can be anything. So how are you going to approach an application or approach a web application? What is the first thing that you are going to do? I believe some of you have already started bug bounty, right? Probably some of you would have already been doing bug bounty.
So we tried to execute a simple JavaScript line on the first name or the last name columns, text
Okay.
boxes.
Okay. So actually, we do not approach an application with a payload in our hand. Okay. We approach an application like a layman, like a casual user. We just try to map out the application. Okay. We just try to understand how the application is behaving. If I input something, how this application is behaving. Okay, like how a layman is going to approach this application. If a layman finds this page, what does it say? It says enter your first name and last name. Okay, so what I can see here is I'm provided with the two input parameters here. Okay, these are two input parameters. That is what I can see here, and I'm being instructed here that you need to enter your first name and last name. Okay, so what I can try doing here is I'll simply provide some very basic input here. Okay, like let's just say RKS here and RKS here. Okay, or let me just change the last name like JKL. Okay, and click on go. When I clicked on go, I need to observe how the application behaved. Okay, how the application responded to my input, to my request. So what all changes can you guys observe here?
It said welcome to RKS JKL.
Okay, that's one thing.
Sir, URL got changed.
URL got changed, right? So these are the two changes that you should observe. Okay. So essentially what I'm looking for here is if my input is being reflected in the output. Okay, that's what I'm looking here. Okay, so what I can do is, first of all, I can see that okay, whatever I provided in the input, that is being reflected in my output. This is one thing. Another thing that I can do here is basically I can go to page source. Okay, and I can go through this source code and I can try looking for this output, my input, whatever input that I provided here. Okay. Before that, let me just reset the database. Application has been reset. Let me log out. RKS, JGL, presenter, view page source. Okay. And if I go through the page source, I can see that my input is there in the source code. This is the input that I provided, right? Yes, okay, great. So now what I'm going to try is, okay, one more thing. In the source code itself, let me tell you, these are your HTML tags, okay? HTML tags, HTML tag, HTML tags, HTML tags. Here I can see these are your script tags. Script tags are basically for JavaScript to tell you that whatever I'm going to provide inside it, inside the script tags, this is going to be JavaScript, right? Back to my HTML tags, HTML, a lot of HTML. So one more thing that I can see here is that my application is based upon HTML and JavaScript. Okay, and these are your client-side languages, right? And I believe I have already talked about client-side and server-side languages. HTML and JavaScript are the example for client sides.
Mm, Generally, we know, but I don't remember that you have explained us.
So you talked about PHP in one of the classes, and then you had mentioned that PHP is a server-side language.
All right,
And
PHP is the server-side
yeah.
language. JSP, ASP, JSPX, Python, Perl, Ruby, all of them are your server-side languages. Okay, and here in the URL itself, I can see that there is some kind of a PHP file that is being loaded here, but I cannot see the PHP code. Okay, because PHP is a server-side language and browser is not going to show me the PHP syntax. Okay, whatever text is going to be written inside the PHP tags, that is not going to be visible to me. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to input something malicious here. Essentially, what happens in cross-site scripting is, as an end user, I try to input something, okay, that goes into the source code and that becomes the part of the source code itself. Okay, it should be executed as if the developer himself wrote that code. Okay, ideally what happens is, ideally this application is developed by some kind of a web developer. Okay, and me as a client or me as an end user, I do not have that much rights, or I do not have that much permission, I do not have that much capability to manipulate the source code of the application. Okay, I cannot do that. But if I am able to do that, that is cross-site scripting. If I'm able to inject some piece of code, okay, and the server or my browser is not able to understand this thing, that okay, if this code is being entered by the user, or it was actually the part of the website from the beginning itself. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is, let's go here, script tag, another script tag, script, script tag open, script tag closed, and let me use an alert function here. Alert hello XSS. Oops, tried saving it. Nope. This is going to be my payload that I'm going to use. Okay, let's go here and enter it. Let me provide something in the last name. Let's just say RKS and click on go. So once I clicked on go, you can see that there's a pop-up here. Initially, it was not here. Right, guys?
Yes, sir.
So this pop-up was actually generated by me. Okay, I entered the code for it to appear here. Let me just click on OK. Go to page source. And here you can see that whatever input was provided by the user, okay, here itself you can see that it is being considered as part of the source code. It is considered as if that this is the page source code. You can see the color encoding also happening here. Right. So when this code executes, when this code is executed, I'll be seeing a pop-up. Okay. So if a user is able to insert something which gets executed as part of the page source, that is cross-site scripting essentially. I hope this thing is clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So actually this is your reflected cross-site scripting. Okay. The example we talked about is the example for reflected one. Okay. So what is reflected cross-site scripting? Reflected cross-site scripting is, it's also known as temporary XSS. Okay. So it is something when it is only going to happen once. Okay, or it is only going to work if I'm going to send this URL to the target. If let's say I try to open this same web page, new private window, I try to visit the same page. So you can see here there is no pop-up that appears. View page source. I cannot find anything here. Okay. So it is only temporary. If I myself is going to visit this page again, this is going to disappear. Okay. Why? Because whatever I'm trying to input here is not being saved behind the scenes. It is not being saved in some kind of a database. Okay. And it is not being fetched every time I'm going to visit this page. So there are a lot of types of cross-site scripting. Okay, probably as of now I have heard about 5 types. Okay, majorly the uh, cross-site scripting is classified under 3 types. Okay, so I have already talked about the reflected one. The next that I'm going to talk about is the stored one. Okay, so there's another type known as stored XSS.
Sir, I got disconnected due to a network issue.
Yeah, Vivek, you are saying something?
Sorry, sir, I got disconnected due to a network issue.
Yeah, not an issue.
Okay.
No problem. So XSS stored blog, click on hack. Now we are here to test the stored cross-site scripting. Okay, the logic is going to remain same. Okay, like first you are approaching a web application, you should approach the web application like a layman, like a casual user. Okay, do not try to test it right away. Just try to input, just try to play around the input fields. Like so here I can see this is the input field here. Okay, let me try entering some data here. Hello, hi, how are you? Okay, and click on submit. Clicked on submit, it says your entry was added to our blog. Okay, some kind of a blog post system is over here, and whatever I'm going to enter, it is going to be saved here. What I can try doing is, first of all, I want to see if this is unique to me or if this is going to be able, if anyone else who is going to visit this page, still these comments or these posts are going to be visible to them. So let's go here in my incognito tab. Select this bug, cross-site scripting, stored blog, click on hack, and you can see that whatever I entered, it is visible to anyone or everyone who is going to visit this page. Okay. So what exactly is happening here? Hmm? Who is going to explain me? Why am I able to see this output?
Because the data is stored in the database of the web app.
Okay, right. I've got an answer in the chat as well, because blogs are visible to every user. Right, because the blogs are visible to every user, that is one thing. And I got another answer in the voice chat that because data is being saved in the database. Okay. Anyone else would like to try? So essentially, what is happening here is whatever user is inputting, whatever user is providing the input, whatever input is being provided by the user, that is being taken by the application and is saved in some kind of a database behind the scene. Okay. You can take an example of like blog post or like comment on any blog post or some kind of a social media post, comments on a website. Okay. So if you uploaded a picture and somebody commented on it. Okay. So anyone other than you or that person, whosoever is going to visit that post, he or she would be able to see those comments, right? So what is happening in that case is data is being fetched from the database and it is being displayed to the user, whosoever is opening that URL or visiting that page. So this is the first thing that I want to test, like whatever user input is provided, is it being stored in the database? Am I able to access the data that I have provided at a later point of time from some other, as some other user or at some other point of time? So I tested it using my incognito tab. Okay. You can see that, okay, this appears here as well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter my same malicious payload, that is script, alert, the payload is complete. Just click on submit. I clicked on submit. I can see a pop-up. It is vulnerable to cross-site scripting. I just want to confirm if it is vulnerable to stored cross-site scripting. So let me just close this incognito tab, open a new incognito window. Get back to that web page. Stored blog, click on hack. And here you can see when I tried visiting that web page at a later point of time from some different browser, okay, or from some different tab, the same payloads gets executed. Okay. So what is happening here is every time someone is going to visit this URL, these comments are going to be fetched from the database. Okay. And when these comments are going to be fetched, whatever payload that you have entered, that is going to be executed. Okay. And that is going to result in the stored cross-site scripting attack. Okay. So stored XSS, reflected XSS, this is clear.
Yes, sir.
What about others?
Yes, sir.
Anyone who was not able
Yes,
to?
sir.
If something is not clear, you can ask me now.
Sir, if you increase the security level here,
Yeah.
will this still happen? So can you just increase the security level by one notch
And I'll not do that.
and perform the
No,
So why, sir?
because
So
I
just
need to
medium.
show something else as well. Okay. I
Okay.
cannot just do whatever you guys are saying, huh? One after the another thing. Huh? Just show me this, do that. Huh? Keep on doing this. कर लेंगे
No,
खत्म,
sir.
50+ का तो क्या है?
I just wanted to see that if it is
This
not
is not
stored
going
in
to
the.
work. I'm telling you, this is not going to work. The same payload is not going to work. Okay. It is not going to work.
So, but there are many filters that are used to filter out all the payloads.
Yeah.
So, how do you make your own payload? As in, you manually go and write all the code, or
Nope.
How can you even how do we start off writing with our own payloads and stuff like that?
So actually, you do not start off by writing your own payloads. That is because you are not someone who is trying to do this for the first time. People have already tried and tested, and they have already created a lot of payloads. Okay, there are a lot of functions out there which can be used to bypass certain mitigations. Okay, let's say XSS. Just type payloads here. Hmm. Payloads. Let's see. Ports figure have a list, and I've got this URL.
So there's this brute logic also.
Yeah,
Who
right.
has this?
Brute Logic. He's like uh, a very good researcher, mastering in the XSS. Brute Logic. This is the one, right? I believe there is a specific tool known as Nox. Nox, if I'm not wrong. It is created by Brute Logic. Heard about it? Nox?
I saw that tool on his Twitter handle, I guess.
Yeah.
Not use.
Yeah, it is created by him. Let me see. It must be available here somewhere. XSS 101, master the art of cross-site scripting. Where is it? Filter bypass, yeah, here it is. KNO XSS. This is the tool. Okay, it's a paid tool. I mean, it comes in the free version as well as the paid version. Okay. Well, let's not get diverted. Coming back to my point, I was talking about some payloads. Do I have any payload list here? Let me just see. Capture system browsing. Nope. I'm not looking for something like that. No brute logic. Let's go to GitHub. Yeah, here it is. XSS payload list. What I'm going to do is I'm simply going to get these lists. You do not need to type all of them, okay? And there are going to be a lot of functions that you are not aware of. That is also the thing. And there was a question that I asked in the beginning, like, do you need to do cross? So is it mandatory that you need to use JavaScript for XSS? And the answer is no. I can do it using HTML as well. Okay. The whole essence is there is going to be an input parameter. If the user is able to input something which is going to be executed as part of the source code, that is XSS. Okay. Now it does not matter if I'm doing using HTML or JavaScript. Okay. Ahref. So you can see here a lot of functions. Some of them are going to be like on mouse down, on scroll, on mouse over, on mouse enter. So I hope you guys are aware of these functions. How many of you are aware of these functions, like on mouse over, mouse
But
under?
we cannot just go on manually copy pasting all these functions.
Right.
As in, definitely we can automate all these things, but is it the only exhaustive list we have, or
No, this
many
is
more
not.
payloads?
Yeah, this is not the exhaustive list. Okay. None of the list is an exhaustive list in case of payloads. Okay. There are a lot of lists here. So what you are going to do is it's just a hit and trial method. Okay. And if you guys would have already been trying bug bounty, you would have realized that all that whims and fancies does not exist actually in the reality. Okay. Not every time you are going to find that $10,000 bounty right away. You need to be very lucky to get a honorable mention at least. Money comes way later on. So it's like with passage of time you can decide, okay, that this is one list that I'm going to follow and you can get another payload list from somewhere else. Okay, try to create your own unique list. Try to merge all of these lists. Try to sort them out with unique entries only. Okay, that's what you do. You try to customize these things as per your need. Do not try to reinvent the wheel. Okay. So there's a tool known as Burp Suite, which can be used for automating a lot of stuff. Okay. If I need to test for reflected excesses, if I take an example, okay, I can just use Burp Suite. I can use this list of payloads and use Burp Suite to automatically start injecting these payloads in the input field or in the input parameter. Okay. You can see this is a big list, very big list. Okay. There's a website where you can practice your skills for XSS, like Bbox, DVWA. These are like very basic stuff. Okay, they're easy, medium, hard is not that hard actually. What was the name? Alert. What was it? Prompt. Yeah, prompt.ml. I believe prompt.ml is the one. So this is a place where you guys dedicated for XSS. Okay. Multiple levels here. Okay. 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E. Okay, great. So this is something that you can do for XSS
Sir,
practice.
there is also a very famous challenge for Access, challenge.integrity.io.
By Integrity, the platform.
I yes.
Yeah, there are a lot of them. Okay, it's like I can just spend all of my session talking about the challenges that are there. You can start with the hacker one or the this
Sir,
one.
actually, if you completed that challenge, if you complete that challenge, you get a Bob Suit Pro license.
Oh, nice. That I was not aware of. I'll look into it. Okay, good to know. So, but if you get a job as a pen tester, uh, you'll get Bob Suit Pro for free, hmm, licensed by the corporate. That's good for independent security researchers. Okay. Okay. Let's get back to my main point. So this is incognito tab. Let me just close this, and this is my normal tab. Let me just reset my database here. Okay. Close everything. Choose the bug and select the Heartbleed. Anyone have heard about Heartbleed vulnerability? No, sir. It's a good read. You guys must give it a try. Local privilege escalation. Nope. I want to go for.
DOM maybe.
I am going to go for the LFI. Where is it? It used to be here. Remote and local file inclusion. RFI, LFI. Click on it. Click on hack. Yeah. Finally. So I'm here. Right here. This is my target URL. Just trying to enumerate the application as a layman. I have a drop down menu here. I have a button here. Click on go. I selected the English. Let me select another language. Click on go. Okay. Let me select another language. Click on go. Okay. So what I'm able to observe here is, one thing is that I am being provided with this message, that is, thank you, thanks for your interest in BWAP and blah blah blah, in different languages. That is one thing. Another thing is that there's a PHP file that gets included every time I'm making a request. You can see here this file is getting included here in this variable. Okay. And do you guys know what are get based method and what are post based methods?
Yes, sir.
Get based is,
So all the
Get
details are
base
stored in
is
the
like all the details get displayed in the URL, and post won't.
post won't, right? They are going to go as like hidden parameters. Hmm. Okay. So this is a get based parameter here, and it is taking it input as a file here. Okay. I can see that different file gets included every time I change the language. Lang underscore fr dot php, probably for French language. For English, underscore en underscore nl. Okay. So now what I'm going to test here is I'm going to try to test for file inclusion vulnerability. What is file inclusion vulnerability? Very simple, very easy. It is like if I am able to read any file that is locally present on the target server, that is known as local file inclusion vulnerability. Okay. And as I already know that my target server is a Linux based operating system, so I can try including a file, a standard file that is available in most of the Linux system, that is /etc. Let me just go to private window first. Select this bug. Okay, I'll try it here. There's a well-known file that exists, that is /etc slash passwd. Okay. For people who are not aware about this file, this is my Linux operating system. And if I go to /etc directory, so here you will see that there's a file known as passwd. Okay. I can try reading that file, and this is how the contents of the file looks like. Okay. These are your contents of this file. Okay. There's a file known as shadow file, for which I am not going to be allowed access to. So who is going to tell me the purpose of shadow file? Hmm? What is the purpose of shadow file?
Containing password of system something like that.
So it basically stores password, okay, in the encrypted format. Let's see. This is my username is Kali, and this is the encrypted format password. Okay. I believe the default encryption method that is going to be used is SHA. The hashing format that is going to be SHA. Okay, let's get back here. So there is going to be a passwd file on my target server. That is on here. This is my target server. Okay. So what I'm going to try here is I'm going to try to access that file. Let's just press enter. And you can see here in the output, I am provided with the etc/passwd file. Okay. So this is known as local file inclusion. Okay. So would I be able to access shadow file here? Hmm? Can I access shadow file here through LFI?
You
So for
don't
that,
have
you have to
the
be a
root.
root
Yes, sir.
root directory.
I need to be in the root directory.
As in, you won't be able to access the shadow file.
Why would I not be able to access shadow file?
You don't have the root privileges.
Because I
of
do not
the
have the root privileges. Okay. So this is again conditional. Okay. If this application, whatever server this is running, if that server is misconfigured and if that server is running as a root privileges, then in that case scenario, I would be able to access the shadow file. Okay. In that case scenario, that would be possible. But in this case scenario, this is not going to be possible. Shadow, because this is not running as root, not an issue. Okay, this is one thing. So this is your LFI. Okay, in case you are targeting a Windows operating system, the file is going to change. Okay, and it's like if you want to automate this task, you guys can find out the list of LFI payloads. LFI payloads. Oops. Nope. Nope. So they are just explaining you with the LFI here. I do not want the explanation. Yeah, Hacktricks is a good website to refer. Okay. Exercises. I want the payloads. Okay. Nothing here. GitHub. Attacker server. Nope, nope, nope. LFI Linux network. Check this one out. Okay, it's a YML file, not the YML file. Let's try the SSH file. Okay, it's probably a different tool. Cannot find any good list of payloads. Keep on getting back here. Let's see. PHP info LFI. Nope. I have a list of all of these payloads saved with me, but that is in my different system. Zishan Sahil, nope. From LFI to RFI, nope. Nope. I can try using the directory traversal payloads. Yeah, here I can get this list. Okay, interesting Linux file, right? So I can use this list in case of Linux. Interesting Windows file. These are standard files that you are going to find in Windows. Okay. Similarly, I can try going through some other search results here. Okay. Now, what is RFI? That is remote file inclusion. What is RFI? If I am able to include a file that is not present on the target server, that is going to be RFI. For example, if I just try to do http google.com, right? So you can see here that google.com is being executed on my target server here. Okay. Now, who is going to tell me the implication for RFI? Who is going to tell me? Impact of RFI. If I am able to execute something that is not available on this server, but I'm able to execute on this server, what can I do?
So you can provide the link to a website that you have hosted, and you can create a fake page like Facebook login or something, and that will fetch you the credentials. Okay.
Right, that is one thing, but try to think big. That is also right. Can take control of the server in RFI, right? I can right away take the full control of the server. Okay. What I can do is I can simply host my malicious PHP or JSP, whatever file that is executable on the target server, and I can execute that file. Okay. That file can be my web shell. Okay. It can be my reverse shell. Let me show you how you can do that. Or this much is enough. Simply checking out http google.com, that is also right, good enough. From sensitive info disclosure to full system compromise is possible with RFI, right? Right, that is possible. Totally possible. Okay. What I can do is I have got user share web shells PHP. I've got some web shells over here. I've got a reverse shell over here. Okay. I can simply turn on a server over here on my machine, and I can host this PHP file, and then I can access that PHP file, or I can execute that PHP file on my target server. That is this server. And I will be getting a remote access, a full control of the server. Okay. That is actually possible. Mm. I need to change the L host and L port value here. Okay, 192.168.75.135. Let me just confirm. 75.135. L port is 1234. Save it. Python minus m simple HTTP server on port 80. The port number was 1234. Let me start a listener over here. Listening for an incoming connection using Netcat. HTTP 192.168.75.135 slash. Let me change the name of the file so that it is short and easy. Shell.php would work. Shell.php. Let's go here. Just try to include this file, shell.php. Press enter. And here you can see that I got a control of the target server. Okay. I can do an if config. If config is not working, IP-addr. Yeah, this is working. And here you can see that I am actually inside the target server. Okay. I've gained a remote shell over the server. Right. That is actually the implication, or you can say impact of RFI. That's why RFI is, if you find an RFI, it is going to be very critical. Probably going to be from P1 to P2. Okay. I hope this thing is clear. What I showed you here. This thing is clear, right, guys? What I did here. I hosted my malicious PHP file. Okay. I started up my PHP server here. Sorry, Python server here. Hosted that file and accessed that file through that RFI. Once that file got executed, I got a shell back here. Yeah, guys, can you hear me? Slept already?
No, sir. Yes, sir. It's clear.
Right. So what about others? किसी को समझ में आ रहा है? सब सर के ऊपर से जा रहा है. रिपीट कुछ करना है? बता दो मेरे को. बता
सर
दो.
वो वेब शेल वाली फाइल हर काली सिस्टम पे होती है.
Yeah, it's pre-installed in every Kali. What you can do is, if it is not there, in case, let's say if it is not there, you guys can go to the Google and you can get PHP reverse shell. Okay. And Pentest Monkey is going to help you every time. This is the PHP shell. This is the same file. Okay. Oops, not this one. This is the one. This is the file that I am using. If you are on on some different distribution, and these web shells are available in different languages as well. Like if Ruby is running on the target server, you will have a different Ruby based reverse shell, different Perl reverse shell, Python reverse shell, PHP reverse shell. Okay. What I did essentially was I just changed the L host and the L port. L port I did not change. L port was 1234. L host is my attacker IP address. That's what I changed. Okay. I changed this value so that when this PHP file get executed, that system needs to know where do it want to make a connection back, where to connect back. Okay. So that's why I mentioned my attacker IP address here in this PHP file. This is the same file that I edited here. Okay, these are two same files. The only difference is here you can see this file in GitHub, and here you can see this file on my command line. That's the only difference. Okay. I just copied it into my temp directory because I did not want it to make any changes in the original file. Just created a copy. Used VI, that is your Vim editor, command line editor. Opened this file in a text editor, modified this file, and I started a HTTP server here. Okay. I can start a server using Python. I can start a server using PHP, Perl. I can start a Apache server as well. So that depends upon you. Okay. I just started a server using Python on port 80. My machine is now. What happened? What did I do next? I started this server. I started a listener. Okay. So I use Netcat. NC is for Netcat. Okay. Hyphen NVLP. NVLP are your flags that I use here. Hyphen N is for, who is going to tell me the meaning of NC hyphen NVLP? 1, 2, 3, 4.
So NC stands for Netcat and NVLP denotes the listening port.
Listening port. What about N and V? N is for? Hyphen N is for? Hyphen N is for do not resolve for DNS. That is one thing. Hyphen V is for verbosity. Show me more than normal output. That is why I'm using hyphen V. Hyphen L is for listening state. Hyphen P is for port number. Okay. So I just started this port. I put this port in the listening state. Okay. So I'm just setting this up because I'm expecting an incoming connection on this port. That there is going to be a connect back to this port. Okay.
Sir, why you started the Python server?
Sorry, why?
You started the Python server.
Why I started the Python server? Because I want to access this file in here in the browser, right? I want to access it here, right? Let me show you. The server is running. So now my machine is acting as a web server. Okay. And you can access it by simply typing here, typing my IP address. And you can see these are all those files which are available in my temp directory where I have started my server. Okay. These are those files. One is your shell.php. Right. So I wanted to include this file. I could have used some other online web-based server. I could have used a VPS. Those are some different alternatives. But as I was doing this for demo purpose only, and everything was inside my local area network, so I did it this way. So I have gone through these steps once again. I hope now this thing is clear. Hmm?
Yes, sir.
Once retrace the steps for us, please. Yes, I have already gone through these steps. If you want me to repeat these step once more, you can let me know. So I'm receiving some messages in chat. Let me know if you want me to repeat again. Once from starting, please. That would be helpful. Okay. Okay. So let's start it from the beginning, huh? And let's go a little slow. Hmm? Let me just try to close everything. Just close everything. Uh, Close everything. Close this thing. Close this thing. Close this thing. Stop this thing. And get back here. Just do an exit here. Okay. Clear it. Close this thing. Everything has been closed now, huh? Everything has been closed, right? So here I was telling you about RFI, remote file inclusion, and I was trying to explain you the impact of RFI, that what I can do is I can execute any PHP file on the target server. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is, let me open my terminal here. So I already have some web shells, reverse shells available with me that are available in cd user share web shells ls. This is the directory where my reverse shells and web shells are available. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm going to copy this file to my another directory. What I did is I copied this file php reverse shell. I copied this file to my temp directory. This thing is clear up till this point.
Yes, sir.
Yes, guys, you do not need me to send messages in private. You can reply me here itself. Okay. So it's okay. It's absolutely fine. We all are here to learn something new, right? So I copied this thing, and what you are going to see next is I'm going to go to the temp directory, and I have this file here. Actually, I renamed this afterwards. Okay. So let me just type this command. Oh, let's just go cd space hyphen clear screen ls and then copy this file cd, sorry, cp file name to temp directory. Let's go to temp directory. I went to temp directory and I can see a php reverse shell here. I opened this file. Let's open it in the notepad text editor. Okay, let's not use command line. Just do mousepad php reverse shell.php. This is the file. Okay, scroll it. Here you need to change this value. Okay, this is my attacker IP, attacker port. What I did here is I changed this value to 192.168.75.135. This is the value that I put, and I can go ahead with this port number. I do not need to change it. Although if I want to change it, I can change it. Let's say make it 369. Okay, it is arbitrary. Do a control plus S to save this file and close this file. So I have edited this file. Now I want to, let's not rename this file. Okay, let's just start a server here. How can I start a server here? Simply type sudo python -m simple http server mentioned by the port number. On what port you want to start this server. Okay, press enter, and my server has been started here. Okay, serving http on for everyone on port 80. Okay, great. Can I confirm this thing? I can confirm this thing by visiting 192.168.75.135 in my browser, and I can see my files being listed here: shell.php, php reverse, shell.php. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I am going to open a new terminal here, and I want to start a listener on the port NVLP 369, I believe. That's the port that I gave in the shell. I don't remember. Is this the port that I gave in the
Yes, sir.
reverse shell?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
I just type sudo here, sudo nc space -nvlp. So I'm just starting, I'm just trying to open this port. This port is being opened on my machine, the attacker machine. Okay, this is my attacker machine, and it is now listening for incoming connection. You can see listening on. The connection can come from any IP address it is going to receive on port number 369. Okay. Okay. Now I'll get a connection back here once my malicious payload, that is this PHP reverse shell, once this gets executed, I'll get a connection back here. Okay. So let's try to run it. Let's go here. http://192.168.75.135/ my file name, and my file name is this. Copy, pasted it here. Great. And let's not execute it right away. I've not pressed enter now. I want you to show the different. I want you to see observe the difference. Okay, now I'm going to press enter. Let me do one thing. Let me include this terminal as well here. Okay, so you can see 3 screens here. One is my netcat. It is listening for incoming shell connection. Here is my HTTP server. So anytime if someone is going to access any file through my HTTP server, I'll get a GET request here. Okay. I'll get a GET request here if somebody is trying to access any file here on my server. What you need to observe is as soon as I press enter over here, you will see a GET request here that a file is being fetched. That file is going to be fetched from my server, and it is going to be executed on the target server. Where? Here. This file is going to be executed on the target server. Once executed, I'll get a shell back here. Okay. And everything is going to happen in a fraction of seconds. Shall I press enter? Everybody is ready?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, you need to observe the differences in the terminal. Okay. So I got a GET connection here, GET request here, and the GET request was basically asking me for this file, get reverse shell.php. It was a 200 response, and it was successful. The server fetched the file, the server executed the file. Once the server executed the file, I got a connection back here, and you can see the IP address here, like connect to this from this. Let me just do a full screen here. So you can see I got a connection from 140, 75.140 to 135. I can press who am I, dub data, okay, pwd, where am I? Let's do an ifconfig. Ifconfig was not working last time I checked. IPA is going to work, and you can see that I am inside my server. Now tell me what is not clear. What is not clear here? Great. You're most welcome. So, okay. So guys, what I would like to request you is start doing some self-study as well, okay? I'm teaching you, that would not be sufficient, okay? I want you guys to do some self-study as well. Don't expect me to do spoon feeding to you, okay? This is not your school. So what is the name? Professor Messer, I believe. Professor Messer. Messer. Security Plus. What is this training course? Yeah, this is the one. SIS 501. So this is the playlist that I would like to recommend. Okay. Start going through this playlist. Okay. I'm sharing the playlist in the chat itself. And what you are going to understand is there are no practicals included. Okay. It's probably a 13-hour long course and without any single practical. Okay. Because at the end, it would be very difficult for me to cover everything. Okay. Along with your more and more requests. Huh? Sir, ये भी करवा दो, वो भी करा दो, ये भी बता दो, मोबाइल पेन टेस्टिंग भी करवा दो, फिर लगे हाथ करवा ही रहे हो तो है, फॉरेंसिक भी लगे हाथ बता ही दो, इतना सब बता रहे हो तो खैर. बट एनीवेज, सो यार ये देखना स्टार्ट करो थोड़ा, ठीक है? कुछ समझ में ना आए तो मुझसे पूछ लेना. ओके. कोई स्पेसिफिक चीज़ का या शाश्वत?
Sir, I was asking that will you be teaching in the same order as it is mentioned in this playlist?
No, I'm not going to teach the same model.
Order.
Order? No, I'm not following any
Yeah.
order here. Okay.
Okay.
I'm not following any order here.
No, I was asking because if you're following that same order, so we can kind of maybe study what you're gonna teach, the theory part in advance before the class, and so that we have more and more time for the practicals, and even you're not overburdened by teaching the theory part. So it
Yeah,
will
that
help.
I understand that, but first of all, I'm not following any order here, and second of all, like there are certain topics like security policy, business impact analysis, risk management, incident response. These are some certain topics which does not require any practical as well. Okay, that is also a case. So wireless security, I'll try to uh, talk about Wi-Fi hacking here in wireless security. Okay, because most of the times you guys are like curious about hacking into your neighbor's Wi-Fi, getting access to your Wi-Fi neighbor's Wi-Fi network. So yeah, and the order does not matter. Okay, these topics are independent of each other. Is there a similar resource for WPAPT or VAPT? Like this playlist, like this learning material? That is what you are asking me? Similar resource for WAPT and VAPT? Yes. Okay. Yeah. I have I have certain resources. It's not available on YouTube. I'll share you the courses. Okay. And if you guys want